In the 1990s, Tabitha Soren was one of the most recognized journalists of her time, reaching tens of millions of viewers on MTV, NBC, and ABC TV. From walking the beach with Tupac to interviewing Bill Clinton and Yasser Arafat, she captured the defining moments of an era. Now, in her second act, Tabitha Soren has transitioned to become a highly successful fine art photographer. While her audiences may be smaller, her artistic vision is fully her own. Her work is celebrated by curators and collectors, housed in some of the world's most prestigious collection, and exhibited in leading museums internationally. Today, on the Crit House, Tabitha Soren shares her artistic influences, exploring the work of Carrie Mae Weems, Gwen John, Joseph Mallard William Turner, Lorna Simpson, and Katie Grannon.
My work on MTV News and NBC News was about storytelling, and I was a television reporter. And those skills that I had in putting together stories with video led naturally to me thinking about one frame at a time. So when I was shooting, I started out at a local station where I was a one-man band, as I said in those days. And so carrying a camera and directing what was going on in front of it and composing a shot and editing all of the video footage in time for the 6 o'clock news, all of that fast and furious production, but also visual culture and communication really informs my practice now. And I didn't really feel like it was that big a deal to go from 30 frames a second to one at a time. At age 30, I was engaged, about to be married, and the idea of continuing to run around the planet on planes and spend time in airports and have this like breakneck pace that will also change quite a bit because, of course, breaking news changes your plans, that I felt like I temperamentally had done all of that I wanted to do. I'm good at it. I know what fight or flight feels like, and I have grace under pressure, but I did not want to choose to be in that environment at a lower pay scale.
Right.
Like I was already doing that in a curated way because obviously I was covering things that the mainstream news outlets were not covering. So I had a little bit more control, but still that just requires a certain level of singular focus that I didn't really appeal to me. And simultaneously, at Stanford, I was able to have deeper thoughts than I was when I was running from one plane to the other. And it occurred to me that the more successful I got, the more mainstream the outlet and the bigger audience, the more watered down the work that I was doing was, because it had to appeal not only to people my age, but people who were, big NBC watchers who were age 70. Right. And trying to put those passions into one piece that people care about in 2.5 minutes just felt like gobbledygook to me. You assume that the bigger is better, that bigger audience, more financial support, all of that stuff is going to lead you to better work. And I felt like actually it was work I was less interested in personally. But the other thing I thought what I would study at Stanford was documentary filmmaking. That's where I thought my path would go, like deeper, longer, more time to tell a story, etc. And I met with so many esteemed Bay Area filmmakers who basically told me that 50% of their time was fundraising, and if that, like maybe even 75%. And then if they were lucky, they got it into a few film festivals, because only Ken Burns and like 4 other people get their stuff on PBS. And then at the film festivals, they're lucky if 25 people come. And you're talking to somebody who had an audience of 80 million. So to me, that just seemed like, well, if nobody's going to see my work, let me do what I actually feel like I fell in love with. And that's fine art photography.
But maybe you can talk a little bit about your thought process with the coming up with these five influences, these images that we're going
Sure.
to talk about. How did you come up with those images?
Well, I think my overriding impulse about my work is to make something I haven't seen before. I lived in Paris for 18 months and I've never shot so few images.
Oh,
As you walk outside, it's raining, the light is foggy, standing there, and you go to shoot something. It's like, oh, Brazil. Oh, well, okay. And then you go to, some place and there's some great puddle. And you're like, oh, it'd be better if there was a figure in the shot. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Henri Cartier-Bresson, never
Yeah.
mind. And you just not, I just felt like there was no need to take another picture that looked like that. So I'm interested in paintings and sculpture and photography that I haven't seen before. And unfortunately, uh, most of the most unfamiliar art objects and photographs are by women.
Mm.
So I thought about images I wish I had known about growing up that were part of my photo history that were just assumed to be part of the canon. I'm old enough that I took the art history class at NYU where they were still teaching the Jansen book, and the only women in there were in paintings, and most of them were nude. So it's something that I feel is really important. There's not even any. I mean, there's been a little bit of improvement, but it's not near equality in the art world. I don't have to tell anybody that. Um, but I like to do my part by thinking deeply about women's work. And so that's where I started for art choices.
Well, let's take a look at those images.
Carrie Mae Weems is somebody that should have been wildly successful, 50 years ago,
Yeah.
but she's getting a lot of attention now. She just got the National Medal of Honor. She's won a ton of awards, but she's waited a long time. And she does so many things. So this picture I love because she's in it and her daughter's in it, and I'm a mother. And I feel like motherhood is very revered in theory and belittled in practice. And I think that I cannot tell you the number of times people have, like, the conversation at a dinner party when I tell them I have 3 children, it just ends. Like, people just do not care, even though they give it lip service. So I love the idea of her making motherhood central and herself central. Also, the other really annoying thing about motherhood is that you are often cribbed, cabined, and confined, like the child is. So there are other examples of people like Imogen Cunningham took a lot of interior shots of, a lot of her abstract work was on the kitchen table, but you can't tell where it is because she might not have been taken as seriously if she foregrounded the domestic space. Instead, she made these amazing surreal pictures of, like, they look like Cheerios, but I haven't seen them in a long time, so I can't really remember. But I like that Carrie Mae Weems just puts it right out there. This is where I'm living. This is where my life is centered right now. And I can make art and be a mother at the same time. And I know from personal experience how incredibly hard that is. It requires a lot of bravery and a lot of fortitude. And it is definitely dancing backwards in high heels.
Let's take a look at your second image from Gwen John.
This is a
Painting.
painting I discovered at Stanford. She was an artist. I had known about Augustus John, which is her brother, and he was famous in his lifetime. And Gwen John was notorious by the end of her lifetime because she kind of got very religious. Some people think she lost her mind, and a lot of people associate her as Rodin's lover, who was discarded, and then she unraveled after that. But I wouldn't give Rodin that much credit in my own story about Gwen John. she's a lot more known now because Celia Paul, another British painter, has written a couple of books of letters to Gwen John, even though she's no, they were not alive at the same time. What I love about this painting is that at a glance, it seems like it's full of restraint. But then you notice that there's this one little hair that's out of place. And then you notice how, yes, there's an old master sort of palette, but she's wearing this vivid red, bold outfit. And she is not smiling at it's not even the camera. She's not smiling in the mirror that she's doing this self-portrait. She is stern and strong. And at that time, women were taken even less seriously than they are now as painters.
There's a defiance in her face too.
Yes, defiance. That is the word I was looking for sure. And I guess I feel like her determination and what she was able to do in painting for a woman at that time required a hell of a lot of bravery and tenacity. And that's what I get from this painting. But in addition, because I know that she is painting from a mirror, the self-scrutiny that is involved in painting something this detailed and the way she is designing her identity with the brooch, which is a goddess, and the red, blood red color of the shirt, and having her hair pulled back so that she can see clearly. I feel like we are all called upon to scrutinize ourselves. And I don't mean through selfies or stupid like social media exposure, but who you actually are, what you actually care about, what are you compelled to spend your time doing. And this painting reminds me of that because she is looking so closely at herself.
The fourth image.
This is my dude. This is my boy.
It's your boy. Okay, tell us about your boy.
He's not a girl. So Joseph Mallard William Turner paints the sublime, basically. A lot of them are historical or mythological. I don't really care so much for the mythological ones, but I think this is Burning in the House of Parliament. And I feel like my work is really trying to visualize psychological states. And that was a new thing at the time that Turner was painting these. He definitely was coming out of a period where the Enlightenment really put all the emphasis on reason. And he was part of the Romantic movement that followed in the late 18th through mid 19th centuries, where reason was pushed aside and emotion in art was primary. And that psychological expression is something that I see in all my work, whether people are running in fight or flight mode, or they are sweating and marking up their iPads. And you can tell that there's this haptic language that's put on there in the surface tension pictures in this fast and furious way. I'm not really interested in depicting things. I would rather describe emotions. And if I could paint, I would paint like this.
You sent along this image that I think was
it definitely, I made it, and as soon as I saw it, because these are shot on film, so there was a delay in me getting to see it. Plus, when I shoot the surface tension work, I really have to pull down the light on the actual iPad, the monitor light, so that the highlights don't turn into hot spots. So the contact sheet that I get back is never encouraging. It's only after I scan it and can pull up the shadows that I can see the image. And once I did that, I thought, oh my gosh, I just made a Turner. And the best part is it's not signed on the dotted line yet, but it will be next month, that the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, which owns a fantastic Turner with a bunch of orange. It's not Burning in the House of Parliament. It's a different one, but it does still have a lot of the orange. They just bought this piece.
Wow.
And because of its relation to the Turner in their collection. And
Congratulations.
it's so validating when somebody
Yeah.
sees your work the way you do,
Yeah.
because it's such all a crapshoot about, it's so subjective. Never mind, like, I mean, I've been visiting that museum and its wonderful photography curators for over a decade. And this is the first time they've purchased something. So it's not like this happens without a lot of legwork on both our parts. I don't know. I kind of figured they'd want a Red Sox tintype or something, but instead they saw what I saw, which
Yeah.
is the best part of this job.
What a great validation. Lorna Simpson with this work. Tell us about this.
So I love this picture. It is currently hanging in my hometown museum in Berkeley, California, which I cannot believe. I had never seen it in real life before, as many Hauser and Wirth shows that I had been to and art fairs and whatever. I had never seen any of the glaciers. It's not about landscape, but I mean, even though you're looking at a landscape, the text in the newspaper clips that are, I think, collaged on top with the paint. So I think it starts out as a silk screen. She mounts it on aluminum and no, sorry, not aluminum. I think it's fiberglass. So it's super smooth. And then she adds these collaged bits. And often that text is about being an African American. And so it works on a deep level. It works on for me, the materials, the combination of all these materials is really appealing because I am always experimenting and failing a lot. I love that she has managed to take a photograph. This is an appropriated image, but she started as a photographer. And I like her approach to lens-based work that brings it out of the silo of the photo world into just the art world in general. And she has a child, she's a mom, she's just managed an incredibly successful career.
Let's take a look at your final image from Katie Grannon.
So Katie is a friend of mine. She is she has definitely been a mentor to me. We both live in Berkeley, both have 3 children, both struggle with trying to find enough time to work. And I was shooting the running series, which is a bunch of people, mostly friends or people who are 6 degrees of separation, no professional models or anything. And I kept bringing back these pictures and she would say, I love the light. I love the setting. I don't care about that middle-class person in that picture. So you got to stop choosing these like boring people to shoot. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I need to go like shoot junkies and, sex workers and trans people. Is that what you're saying? That's your work, not my work. Katie's amazing, but anytime I show her 2 pictures and one of them has somebody with a tattoo on, she always prefers that picture. Oh, she knows what she likes. So she said, yeah, I want you to come with me to Modesto. I'm going like 2 weekends from now. We can stay in, my crappy little motel and bring your own pillow and come and you can just, there are lots of people that I know there and they love to, have you give them $20 or $50 or whatever, and they would shoot with you for an hour or something. We both went to this place where she knew, because she had spent much more time in Modesto than I had, under this overpass where the sun set was really beautiful. The place that Katie shot was right off screen to the left. And I pointed my camera one way, she pointed her camera the other way. I think they're both great pictures, but it was a really good example of how, as artists, you got to put your own take on things. It's not enough to like be in the environment and just record what you see. She was working on something about how people are surviving in along this highway, and people who are transitionally housed, and they don't have, some of them have drug problems, but not all. And they were all pretty much, they drew the short end of the stick in terms of life, or we're not all born into equal circumstances. And she was interested in them in the land, and how they relied on each other to get through difficult things. And I am also interested in those things, but I was focusing more acutely on, what people are able to survive and what they're not. And so the figures, I think of them as heroes and heroines in the running series. So you can't tell whether they're running towards something, they're running away from something. And I feel like we all feel like that a lot of the time.
Well, they are not at all the same picture, but you can tell that
And they have two women in them also. I
that's
mean, we're using different subjects, but I just love that.
well, Tabitha Soren, what a pleasure to talk to you. I have known of you since, I was a younger person and you were doing broadcast
I
and
was younger too.
media. I figure we were probably both in that process. Um, but now you have done something and made a transition in your life into something that is truly spectacular. So congratulations for
Oh, that's so nice of you to say, Jeff.
no, it's really, I mean, you said you didn't go to art school. I have not studied art either, and one of the fascinating things for me to do in these conversations is to learn about people's paths and how they see things and what are the things that influence them to not only become who they are, but to see how they see and to produce the things that they produce. And you have done all those things in spades here in this conversation.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And thank you all for watching The Crit House.